Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. Do you want to become a better shooter, reduce flinch, protect your ears, and just overall enjoy shooting your gun that much more? Then there's no better way to do that than by adding a suppressor to the end of your barrel. Be sure to check out Huxwrx Safety Co, as they are a leader in the suppressor world with their OSS Flow-Through Technology, virtually eliminating blowback and toxic gas that can affect weapon system performance and shooter health. To find out more about Huxwrx, go to huxwrx.com. That's huxwrx.com, and go get yourself a suppressor for your upcoming hunts. This podcast is also proudly brought to you by OnX Hunt. When I first got into hunting, I kept hearing all about public land and different access and how to find different locations to hunt. I was like, well, how are people even identifying all this stuff? Well, sure enough, I came across the number one hunting GPS app, and that is OnX Hunt. If you guys want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, OnX Hunt is the number one GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust OnX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. It was a game changer for me, and I know it's going to be a game changer for you if you've never used it. If you have used it, you know the power that it holds. Guys, I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you want to know more about OnX, go to onxmaps.com/hunt. and check out their app. Be blessed, freedom on, and stay soulful. All right, guys, if you're in the market for optics, I want you to go check out blackdiamondoptics.com. Black Diamond Optics offers world-class sporting and tactical optics, including thermals, all at wholesale pricing, direct to consumer. They are going to be partnering up with us for 2023, and I want to start pointing you over towards their direction. Check out Black Diamond Optics. If you've got any questions about it, shoot us a message. Love to hear from you. Be blessed, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, live in the studio, Soul Seeker Studio, with my man, Brian Lynn of the Sportsmen Alliance. And we're going to be talking all about what's happening in the world of hunting and how you can get involved, take action, and get updated, because knowledge is power, and we need to be active and involved and together, because mentorship is also conservation, and we got to protect hunting at all costs. Brian, for all the listeners who are checking out this podcast and haven't caught one of the episodes that you've been on here before, what's your role within the Sportsmen's Alliance?
I am the Vice President of Marketing and Communications, so pretty much all the outward-facing stuff you see falls under me, from social media to the website to the magazine to brochures that go out, just about everything. So it's just about anything the public sees will at some point go through me.
Yes, awesome. Well, I love the website. I've been a huge fan of your writings. You've been an outdoor writer for quite some time, right?
Yeah, getting old. Like, I see that now. It's like, oh, wow. Yeah, about 23 years now I've been in the industry. So, yeah, I remember when I used to be the young kid. Now I'm just the old middle-aged guy like everybody else. So,
Yeah, well, I'm getting up there in the club as well, so I'll join you. For those of you who did not catch episode 1 of season 2 of Soul Seekers, Brian actually joined us for a turkey hunt. As you can tell from his back wall, all you viewers on IG Live, he's a turkey stud. However, you hunt turkeys the first time for the fun. You hunt turkeys the second time, and the remainder for the revenge, which we learned very quickly. So
I hated to crush your optimism on that hunt. You're like, no, we're gonna kill him. And I'm like, dude, it's turkey hunting. Like, they might just walk in, but odds are we're going to get our ass handed to us. And by the end of the weekend, you were like, I hate turkeys.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm going here, Iron Will's flying down to Texas, and we're going to be having our hand at some Rios here for the first time. And fingers crossed,
Texas is good.
This one's for revenge. So we're going to be getting after it.
Yeah.
All
Texas and Rios. That's a good combo right there.
Heck yeah. All right, brother. So what I want you to do is I just want to open the floor for you to just start talking. Obviously, we got to cover spring bear, state of Washington. We got to cover the whole. I don't even want to say her name, Lorna Smith lawsuit that's going on, and then all the other things that are happening in this country because it seems like there's a lot of stuff happening in the hunting world. So, where would you like to start at?
Yeah, I don't know. I've been underwater with it for a couple months now. So wherever you'd like to, I mean, I guess we just start by saying like right now, 49 out of the 50 states are in session. And so it's just you're when you say it seems like it is, it literally is like on fire. Everything's going. I mean, if you look at our Legislative Action Center, which is on our website, I mean, the whole thing is just bright orange with a couple of light ones, and then like Louisiana is not in session. Everybody else is just lit up. So between your firearms laws, your dog laws, fishing, game commissions, I mean, it's everything's just blown wide open. I mean, it's I think right now we're monitoring about 1,000 different bills, and we've
Wow.
sent out since January 1, we've sent out 150, 160 somewhere in there alerts to
Is
different states.
you out of all those bills, those are all anti-hunting bills?
Not all of them. No, no. In that within that 1,000, there are pro hunting bills within there, but you got to watch those things too because you never know when an amendment's going to get thrown in, or if they're going to try to kill it in a committee, or if it's cruising along, we just watch it. But if it's going to face trouble, we have to alert on it. So, there's good and bad in there. Unfortunately, there's usually more bad than good.
Yeah, it seems like it. Always on the defense, it seems like here. All right, so let's talk spring bear in the state of Washington. The everyone that is a hunter and outdoorsman in the state of Washington got absolutely hosed when it came to the board members. And for those of you who are listening who don't necessarily follow along with what's happening, um, the board members just are voting against what the scientists are saying, the biologists are saying, and saying there is enough population of black bears in the state of Washington to have a spring season, and yet they're just like, no, not happening. Can you speak more on that, Brian?
Yeah, no, it's been going on. It's a 2-year battle that's been going on now. And it's really, if you go back into the history of it, it's that it was a special hunt, a permit hunt to reduce tree damage within the timber areas, to provide some recreational hunting, um, and uh, and to manage the bears. But it was always one that had to be passed every year. It wasn't one that was just kind of like, oh yeah, it had to pass a vote. It wasn't rolled in with the game management plans. And so when it came up for vote, it was a tie vote. Going back 2 years ago, it was a 4-4 tie. We didn't have somebody seated on the commission, so it was a 4-4 tie. Well, when you're parliamentary rules, when you're trying to push an initiative forward, it has to pass. A tie is not a pass, so it didn't pass.
Mm.
You know, and so that's kind of where it started with, and then, got another commissioner on board, and it just went back and forth, and it's been a 2-year saga, and we've been watching the thing for 2 years, and there's been some improprieties that we'll be getting to. But
Can you
after
talk
two
about that at
years,
all, or do you want to hold on
uh,
to that?
a little bit. I mean, we can talk about the lawsuit a little bit that we filed. We filed that against Lorna Smith, and it's right there in the RCWs. It says, appointed commissioners, fish and game commissioners cannot hold another appointive or elective office in the state. Period.
Pretty cut and dry.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, yeah. There's no language in there that says, oh, if you're volunteering or whatever, that doesn't matter. Plus, she's not exactly a volunteer. So she's on the planning commission, appointed by the commissioners in the planning committee under the commission, and she receives a $50 stipend, for the meetings, and she's been serving on that for 2, 3 terms now, something like 7 years. And she took her appointment with the Fish and Game Commission, knowing that she was in a conflict, and we're calling her out on it. You
man.
know, this is just the first step. But yeah, the the state, it looks like the state is going to represent her. So your tax dollars are going to represent her.
To defend somebody who's breaking a state law.
Yeah. And they don't believe they are. They say it's volunteer and so it doesn't count. But one, she's getting the stipend. And two, if the legislature wanted to say volunteer was fine, they would have said that. They didn't. They said any appointed office is a conflict of interest. And I mean, Lorna kind of showed that in a couple of different meetings where she talked about being a city plan or the county commission planner and how her county would need funding. Well, that just clearly illustrates what type of conflict of interest you could have sitting on two different state commissions.
Mm,
So, she showed that.
right.
Um, uh, so, I mean, she was supposed to respond by today. I didn't hear whether or not she did. Maybe she did. I'm sure they probably did. I know they had some communication. I don't know to what level, but it sounds like the state's going to defend her and like they're going to fight it. So I guess we'll find out from a judge if the state's right or if we're right.
It's really fascinating that this even came up. Obviously, the RCW was put in place to protect the different boards, the different organizations, so that we can't have our hands in both pots and be able to,
Yeah.
take, what, steal from the rich, give to the poor, steal from the poor, give to the rich, like the Robin Hood mentality. Like, we got to make sure that um, we have fidelity within our appointments, which is
Yeah.
super huge. How did you guys end up finding out? Like, how did you dig up that she was this RCW in the first place? What's up, Soul Seekers Nation? Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate it. As a reward, I have some discount codes for you to use if you are in the market for a brand new hunting pack. Go check out initialascent.com and Initial Ascent packs. They are made in America. Their one-piece carbon frame is an absolute game changer. We run their packs. We love them. And you can save 5% at checkout by using the code SOULSEEKERS. That's all one word. Also, for those of you who are archery hunters and you are tired of shooting at dots on a target, check out deadnutsoutdoors.com for their lifelike 2D archery targets. You can save 20% on all of their products by using the code SOULSEEKERS at checkout. Once again, the code is SOULSEEKERS, all one word. Go check out initialascent.com and Dead Nuts Outdoors. Enjoy the podcast.
Well, I mean, it's if you've been paying attention to this for 2 years, it's been out there, and so we've just been watching, and this is just the beginning, as I said, and as Todd has said, our VP of Government Affairs, this is just a first step. There's been several improprieties, the way meetings have run, what they've done, actions they've taken, that we'll be filing lawsuits on, and we're not going away.
So what's the purpose of the lawsuits? Like, you're not asking for damages. Like, if she steps down from her county position, that still doesn't do anything good for the wildlife other than not having her feet in both areas. So what's the main goal on this?
Well, I mean, really, it's like, this is a first step again, a first step just to bring law and order back to this state. When it comes to wildlife management, it's run completely off the rails. We haven't had a commissioner confirmed since 2017.
Wow.
None of them are confirmed except Barbara Baker, who's been reappointed. Everybody else is non-confirmed, and so last year they held a couple of Senate committee hearings and asked some questions, but it's too late in the session to call them to a floor vote. This year, right after our lawsuit came out, magically everybody got pushed through their committee hearings. Looks like they'll probably get called up to Senate hearings, which, hey, whether or not they get confirmed, at least they're putting the government practices into place. Like, we have a system of checks and balances, and our representatives aren't getting a chance to vote on these people.
Right.
The governor's appointing them, Inslee's appointing them, and then they're doing whatever they want.
This is
without the check and balances of the people.
Okay, so this is where me as a school teacher and a lover of the Constitution and this great country that we live in, it really irritates me because growing up in society, we are always told not to talk about money, politics, and religion. Oh, we can't talk about money. Oh, we can't find out how much a job pays or what, can't talk about politics because you might upset somebody. And oh, don't talk about religion because, people might get upset. But ultimately, those are the three basis and foundation and driving factors behind every single person each and every day and everything that they do, whether it's your personal beliefs or just how you hold yourself day to day. And so here we are in the great country set up with checks and balances, and yet we're not following it, and people aren't even paying attention to that. Like they're just like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm in a position. No one cares.
Yeah. Yeah. And in Washington, the commissioners don't have to be confirmed. A lot of other states, they have to be confirmed. In Washington, they don't have to be. As soon as they're appointed, they are invested with the power to manage our wildlife and make huge policy decisions that impact all of us.
And all these people
And so they can
are
just go for years.
yeah, and all these people have been put in by Jay Inslee personally, correct?
Yes.
So
Yes, handpicked with no standards. His opinion is all that matters. In other states, they'll have standards where you have to have a hunting license for 5 out of 10 years or 3 out of 5 years, or be nominated by sportsmen's clubs, or there's some type of nominating and process to it, which the animal rights movement continually every single year tries to lower that threshold so they can do exactly what's happening here in Washington and other states. And that is just get somebody appointed that they want. And then they can throw monkey wrenches into the whole process by claiming, making absurd claims like, oh, the bears are in a difficult position in Washington state. Not true, but they can say it, and you'd like to throw around the precautionary principle. And so, that plays well with the media and plays well with the public. And of course, we're all going to be conservative with our game management. That's what the biologists are doing. They're making conservative estimates, yet they want to take it even more conservative, So
well, and the whole idea is
it's no process.
conservation. It's the root of the
Yeah.
word. Like we want to make sure there are animals for the next generation. We want to make sure there's animals for the next seasons. And I just completely blind. This is what I really is truly fascinating is that people don't understand the trickle down effect, the snowball effect of how, whether you do like Jay Inslee or don't as a governor, when you vote for him, if you're pro hunting and he's now appointing, anti-hunting board members, you just voted for an anti-hunting board member position in that regard. And so, and this is, I'm not casting judgment on people, but I want you to understand that everything that we do, everything that we say, everything that we are, ripple effects, and it reaches all aspects of that pond. And you may not see it right away, but like, oh, well, I really liked him on this policy, but I love hunting. And all of a sudden he turns around and hammers you on the thing that you love most. Well, you got to choose what is the thing the hill you're going to die on. What are you going to fight for to the end? Because if you don't really care about hunting that much, okay, whatever. But I do, you do, and I know a lot of the followers of this podcast on social medias, they're all about it. I personally, my life was transformed when I hunted for the very first time. I understood the power of it. It challenged me in my courage, my manhood. I was scared to hunt solo, scared to hunt bears, all these different things. And when I put myself into that position, that vulnerability, all of a sudden I was like, whoa, I'm challenging myself. I'm growing as a man. It allows me to really identify the things that I want to believe in and want to stand for. Because Abraham Lincoln, stand for something or fall, or no, stand for, what is it? I'm blowing this quote right now. Stand for something or fall for anything. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. As a thank you, I got more discount codes for all of you. If you are in the market for anything in regards to calls, whether it's elk calls, turkey calls, deer or predator calls, You can save 15% on all Rocky Mountain hunting calls by using the code SOULSEEKERS. That's all one word. And if you're in the market for hard side hydration, a better way to hydrate, go check out hardsidehydration.com. Use the code SOULSEEKERS10 to save 10%. And we also have a discount at Graxaw.com. That is, Graxaw is the leader in ultralight game bags and other backcountry gear. Light, fast, and efficient is their motto. Use the code SOULSEEKERS, all one word, to save 10% at checkout. It is the concept. But so here we are. We got a couple different lawsuits that are actually going to be coming again. Are they pointed to any one particular member, or is it more the state or the board or Inslee, or how's this all going to be broken down?
That's probably a better question for the lawyers, but I think it'll be, there could be some other commissioner ones, but I think it's mostly probably going to be aimed at the commission and the way things have gone. And yeah, without getting too specific with some of how they've run meetings and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Now,
yeah, there's issues all over the place.
what was one of the things that happened, was this in January or December, that there was a meeting over in like Spokane with a bunch of wildlife groups, but certain people were not invited. And what can you talk about that?
Yeah, so that was in Spokane. That was in November. That was the Wildlife Society, which is, it's kind of the head organization for all your state fish and game biologists and people of kind of that ilk. Tribes are part of it. It's all this. People are interested in wildlife and kind of from the scientific perspective. So they've done a lot of great stuff, and they work hard, and a lot of good knowledge takes place. So they get together and tell each other about studies and everything. Unfortunately, Wildlife for All somehow snuck through the process and was allowed to have a panel discussion on just this topic: transforming fish and game commissions and our wildlife management model. Presented to a room of biologists, and it was a packed room. So, I mean, we found out about it and kind of kicked the hornet's nest and got everybody fired up. And I don't know, maybe if we hadn't said anything, there would have been 5 biologists there, but it was standing room only. But it was I'm looking through my magazine here because I wrote a feature on it in our last magazine issue. Word salad. These guys got up there from Wildlife for All and basically talked religion. Talked about what was wrong with our fish and game commissions. It's all white male hunters. They talked about biodiversity loss. They talked about confusing words. They talked about management. But throughout the thread, as I wrote in this article, throughout the whole thing was hypocritical. Kevin Bixby, the executive director, got up and he talked about the makeup of wildlife commissions being white male hunters. Yet everybody sitting on his panel were white, well-educated, affluent people who lived in suburban areas. So that's who he's talking to. Fred Kuntz was on there, and he was one of the fish and game commissioners for Washington who voted against the spring bear hunt. He lives in Duval. I don't think, having the Seattle Seahawks as your next door neighbors counts as wildlife, but that's how he voted, so that, and throughout the whole thing, it was just hypocritical after hypocritical. The guy he was responsible. One of the guys responsible for passing the Colorado Wolf Initiative. And he got up and talked about working on Ted Turner's ranch and how they did this prairie dog stuff and proactively killed prairie dogs. They were trying to bring black-footed ferrets back, and prairie dogs are the main feed for them, prey species. And so, but they didn't want to upset the ranchers, so they controlled the prairie dogs and even used poison around the edges to keep them under control. Yet when it came to talk about wolves, proactive management was not on the table.
Mm.
Only reactive management, no, only as a last resort was that acceptable. And then he took it a step further and tied it to racism. I mean, the mind loops and hoops these people jump through to make their stuff seem logical is unbelievable. I mean, Harriet Allen, who used to be the endangered species coordinator here in Washington State, who, under her watch, the woodland caribou and the Selkirks went extinct and were extirpated because of wolves and mountain lions. So she placed a higher value on wolves than she did on the last remaining woodland caribou in the lower 48. But I digress. Her whole point was biodiversity loss, and she started talking about birds, and then she conflated North America with global bird loss and all this other stuff. And then she admitted through the whole thing the only place that species weren't being lost were in the wetlands because of all the funding that was going on with it. Who funds that? Hunters do.
Mm.
Ducks Unlimited, Delta Waterfowl, the duck stamp. That's where all that money came from. That's where all that funding came from. And that's the model they want to kill.
Yeah.
Yet somehow they have this thing that goes on in their brain and they're able to rationalize it. It makes absolutely no sense. It's living in a fantasy world. One of the people, after the big presentation, they talked at us for about 45 minutes. I mean, literally talked at us like we were stupid. Talked at us for about 45 minutes. And at the end, they were only left enough time to answer about 3 questions. And somebody asked, well, what's the funding model you're going to use if you destroyed this model? And their answer was, well, we need to pass RAWA, which didn't pass. And then we just need more general funding.
Yeah.
Well, we need more, like in this day and age, Democrats and Republicans are just going to join hands in all 50 states and allocate more money to wildlife when they have homeless issues, drug issues, mental health issues, crime, poverty, and everything. No, that's the reason we invented the model to begin with, is because society did not prioritize wildlife
Hmm.
and the management and the conservation of funding it.
Yeah.
So we created a user pay, everybody benefits system. That's worked for 100 years and brought animals back from the edge of extinction. Now they think we're going to prioritize it.
Yeah.
No, they're living in a dream world.
Well, there's two things I want to talk about and mention here, hearing you talk about all these things. Number one, a lot of people don't realize this, but in the state of Washington specifically, um, that all funds, fish and wildlife, and all this goes into the general fund. Instead of supposed to be appointed separately for fish and wildlife, it just goes into the main pot and then they pull out for roads and construction and different things. Just like lottery, the lottery in the state of Washington was specifically only approved for education. The proceeds were supposed to go towards education. And yet, once again, back into the general fund, everyone can pull from it. And so we've lost our way, but a lot of the things is we don't know. A lot of people just don't know. Ignorance is bliss, right? It's like, it doesn't initially affect me right now, so I'm not going to care. Rather than
Yep.
actually understanding the foundation and the principles of why certain things within government, such as the checks and balances that we were talking about earlier, are put into place. If all wildlife money, fishing game, hunting licenses, all that stuff, actually went back into the wildlife, man, we'd have a wonderful thing here in the state of Washington. And then, I don't know how other states are ran, but that's just one thing specifically that I know from there. Um, but
Well, there are protections. I mean, the Pittman Robertson dollars can't be put in there. So that would be dialing down to, how they allocate the license monies, but the federal monies are protected and have to be used, for that with that, or they get in big trouble, but as you chip away at this stuff, again, the effect is fewer hunters, fewer hunters, fewer dollars, not just licensed dollars, but then the federal dollars that come from Pittman Robertson, as well as, sale of any of the firearms and ammo that goes with it comes from that. So it is a catch 22 like that,
so
but
is it a catch 22 also when all of a sudden there's a bunch of Second Amendment laws going out there to restrict what you can purchase, and then all of a sudden that dollars is going away as well? It's like they're
yeah.
attacking from every single angle. to strip you from your freedoms, your rights, and your ability to procure your own food and to feed your own families in whatever means you seem fit. Um, it's super fascinating, and I can see extremely frustrating. Living in the trenches like what you do day in and day out, I imagine it just feels like you never can get clean. You're just like you're full on in the trenches of the of this fight right now.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. We got a couple more months, and then it'll ease up for the summer, so that'll be nice. But yeah, it's one thing after another, and it's one front after another. Like it's multi-front. And what you said is, a lot of it is ignorance, and ignorance isn't wrong. Like that just means a lack of knowledge. So it's fine to be ignorant, but if you choose to remain ignorant and ignore facts, then it becomes an issue. When it comes to wildlife management, especially, the most ignorant people are the ones who have the greatest mass. The people who live in the cities are the voting public, which is fine. Except when it comes to if everybody's ignorant, or a large majority of them are ignorant and are leading with emotion instead of science that is being presented, based on if they are just letting that be overruled by their belief system, that becomes an issue. And
Mhm.
then the management gets skewed up with predator prey, habitat species, and then it all starts to come unwound. So, it's especially in states like Washington, Oregon, California, New York, New Jersey, the coastal states, with those big metropolitan areas, these battles get lost. I mean, here in Washington, we lost the hound hunting for mountain lions, for bears, and that was based on pure popular vote. I
Right.
mean, it didn't matter what science, didn't matter what legislators say. Now the Fish and Game Department is handcuffed, and so for since 1996, we haven't had hound hunting for either of those species. What happens? Species go up, start having more interactions, more sightings, more depredation, whatever. This carries on for 20, almost 30 years now. Okay, so the only thing the state can do when they're seeing conflicts, seeing timber damage, seeing all this stuff is increase the number of tags. So, like they did last year, 2 years ago, uh, they put out 2 bear tags that you could harvest in the fall while also having the spring hunt. Well, now our game commission, while they're wanting to ban this stuff, is saying, look how successful everybody was. They killed a whole bunch of bears.
Hmm.
That we're killing too many bears, which too many, they can't quantify that, so they're just talking in circles, but it sounds good. And frankly, it's a 5-4 vote, so they can do or say whatever they want. There's a commissioner on there who doesn't really say much, but when it comes down to voting time, you know exactly where she's going to vote. And so they don't even really have to discuss it. They just have to have a plausible deniability in order to not get questioned on it.
Right. Right. How much of this, and this is a big question. So if you want to divulge some of this information, feel free. If you need to keep the cards close to the chest, do what you need to. But I know when it comes to politics and lawsuits, sometimes you don't play for the initial hit. You're playing the long game when it comes to precedent. Because if you can get precedent, and this goes for the antis as well, if they can get precedent in this state, all of a sudden it's a domino effect across the board. Vice versa, if we can defend hunting and have it be a precedent for in whatever regard, then all of a sudden it's like it strengthens the cause. Um, can you talk a little bit about that at all?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So when you have court cases where there's, this is different than, this commissioner stuff is different than what, where precedent would be set. But like some of the management stuff we're seeing in Alaska, in state versus federal, you get a ruling one way, you appeal it to the next court. Sometimes you don't want to appeal, and that's where precedent comes in. Like there's been rulings where it's okay, it's not really a win, but it's not really a loss. We're kind of in this gray area. We got to live to see a better day. Where, if we appeal something to the Ninth Circuit,
Mm,
good luck. They're not going to be on your side. So you have to, pick and choose your battles when it comes to that kind of precedent setting stuff, and then and be really smart about it, which, the lawyers get paid a lot more and are a lot smarter than me on when and where to do that. So
Yeah. What other major hotbeds are we looking at across the nation right now? Obviously, the Washington one really touches home because you live in Eastern Washington. You're a Washington boy. I formerly am. Now I'm down here in the state of Texas. But what are the things that Sportsmen's Alliance is really keeping their eye on as far as I got that map pulled up myself right now as well. You can. I also, by the
I
way,
mean,
I wanted to just say that you said Louisiana is the only one that's not like active. Their nickname is the Sportsman's Paradise. So it's
yeah.
of course, come on now.
Yeah, I mean, just take your pick here. Fish and Wildlife Commission, 188 bills. Fishing, 152. Hunting, which includes firearm stuff, is 599 bills. Sporting dogs, 112. Trapping, I'm using quotes, 75 or yeah, 75 is a good year for them. They're usually the ones getting hammered. So just having those, them just not getting hammered as bad as, I guess that's a good thing. But yeah, we've seen, well, obviously a lot of firearms laws, and it's interesting because, as you said, we talked about, are there good laws in these numbers? Also, yes, and it's kind of funny to watch. You can see the divide in America, the red states and the blue states. The blue states are creating more and more laws, whether that's background checks, whether that's waiting periods, whether that's permit to purchase systems, whether that's magazine bans on semi-automatic firearms. Uh, they're going that direction. The red states are going the other direction
Mhm.
and trying to stop. If you've probably seen it, the credit card stuff where they're creating a credit card code for if you purchase a gun or
Oh yeah,
ammo
it's
in
kind of
a store, it's coded as that and such. So they, one, it creates a default registry, but two, they can track it and see who's purchasing what and where.
right.
Well, the red states, I believe Discover Card has already implemented it. Visa and MasterCard have backed off under the backlash. There's already states, the red states are putting in laws to stop it preemptively.
Hmm.
So they're doing that. There's also preemption. Arizona was one, Wyoming was one, that they are is strengthening their preemption laws,
Right. I was
which is
actually purchasing some firearm components. One of my websites that I like to go to, ironically, was based out of California, and because they were in California, the credit card companies wouldn't allow their payments to go through. So they're actually moving to Arizona, ironically, so that they can actually receive payment and continue business. Um, you're right. It's a registry that's not a registry, but it's this footprint, and this is the whole point. And we go down the rabbit hole of conspiracies and central bank digital currencies and carbon scores and all this stuff because at the end of the day, they want ultimate control over you and your life, whether you believe it or not. If they can say, "Hey, you can't hunt that animal, you can't do this, you can't, no, 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 no." Well, that doesn't sound like freedom. That doesn't sound like freedom for all, which is what America is founded upon, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So it's time for us to take a look in the mirror and actually evaluate what it is that we stand for, what it is that we believe in, and what we're gonna act upon. Knowledge is power is cool, but if you don't act upon it, then what? Right? So there's
yeah.
the Bible story about the talents. Um, one son was given a talent, money, whatever, and he buries it in the ground because he didn't want to lose it. And the other son went out and spent it and multiplied it and grew it. Well, because one was afraid and led with fear, he ended up not making progress and growing. The other one who was like, all right, no risk, no reward, let's get after it, ended up multiplying and being very fruitful in his life. And so regardless of that just being a story, it really rings true today. Is like, you can't just be a pro hunting in your head. You got to be pro hunting outside of your own house, outside of your head. Speak it, be active, be engaged. I just got done having a conversation the other day with someone, and I was like, you got to talk about hunting like it is the absolute coolest thing ever. Because if you're not, then you're not going to be recruiting new members. You're not going to make it exciting and have people be gravitating towards it like, oh man, I think I want to check that out. Or where's the rally cry of let's go, And so, all men die, but not all men truly live is no truer words ever spoken. It's like we need to be advocates beyond social media because we preach to
Yeah.
the choir a whole lot. We need to be advocates in our jobs. When someone says, "Hey, what do you like to do for fun?" Say, "I love hunting." Have you ever tried it? "Oh, no, I don't like hunting." Well, why not? It's a beautiful thing. It's a great life skill. It teaches you a lot of life lessons. It provides food, all, you name it. And yet when we just stay in our box, right? We got our blinders on. I go from point A to point B. This is what I do every single day. I don't like to ruffle feathers. I don't want to cause stress. I get a lot of anxiety, whatever it is, whatever your default is or your fear is. Man, it's time because we're reaching a point in history where, especially I know this in public education, the minute that something's taken away in public education, it never comes back. And and so we uh we need to make sure that these things are not lost. And
Yeah.
I get passionate about it because it impacted my life so much, but if we can understand these stories and share them so that it does impact more people. Man, Brian, I love getting together with you because I get all fired up. Right now, I'm sitting down, but I want to be like, I wish there was a crowd here and we could like, let's go, everyone, come on. Does it feel defeating at times?
Um, at times, I don't know about defeating. Who was it? Was it Sisyphus or somebody in Greek mythology that every morning they had to roll the stone up the hill
Yes.
and they get to the top, and then the next morning they had to start up. That's kind of what this is like. And but and it can be defeating when you see things that do pass and that happen. But when you look at, like I just showed 1,000 bills, when you think about the tonnage of bills and the way, all the different ways they're trying to end hunting and wildlife management, the fact that they're not more successful is what keeps me going sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we stop them a lot.
Yeah.
you know does that mean it's we need to just give up on the other stuff? No. Like, you were saying, be an advocate, and that's, especially more than on social media. It does get no good. Like right now with the shooting and everything, and everybody's just, posting stupid memes and incorrect information and whatever else, or just talking to the choir, preaching to the choir. It does no good, you know.
Yeah.
Get involved, kind of go full circle, talking about the commission and the Senate hearings. And we weren't getting that check and balance with the Fish and Game Commission because the Senate hasn't heard and approved anybody since 2017. Wherever you stand, get involved. Like,
Yeah.
this is our republic.
Right.
It's our republic. They answer to us. They need to be doing this. We need to be more engaged. And I'll be honest, you'd be surprised how little engagement it takes to start swaying and moving politicians.
Mm.
And I'm not talking tag them in social media, or, we send out alerts. SCI sends out alerts. Everybody sends out alerts. And we all have the one button click that you can do, and you can send an email. That's better than nothing. But you really want to make a difference, pick up the damn phone and call them.
Mm.
I know it can be kind of like, uh, overwhelming or scary or intimidating, whatever the word is you want to use. Pick up the phone and just say it. And it doesn't matter if you're saying it to the aide, you're saying it to the guy, whoever, they're going to get the message. I mean, when we put out alerts, it happened in Utah this year with a dog kenneling bill. We put out an alert. They got emails, they got phone calls. They called us and said, "What the hell's going on? What's wrong with this?" Stuff happened in Colorado or somewhere else, and they're like, "Hey, this is BS. This isn't what we're trying to do. You guys are wrong." So here it is, right here in the bill, and here's the fiscal note that's attached to it. I said, "Oh, okay." And so they stepped back. Now, so if you just get involved and pick up the damn phone and call, you'll move the needle a lot more than a one-click email, and a whole hell of a lot more than just screaming on social media.
This is exactly why I created this podcast. So, this podcast used to be called The Soulful Hunter. Now it's Soul Seekers to be tied into everything. But the point is so often we get lost in this dialogue in our head. We have conversations with ourselves all the time that don't actually exit the mind or exit the body or the mouth. The point is there is power in spoken word. There is power in spoken word, and that's why we need
Especially in
to.
politics.
Yes, and that's why we need to call legislators, speak to them. This is why I always talk about telling stories about hunting like it's the coolest thing ever, because there's power in word, spoken word. Not everyone's going to read a story that doesn't interest them, but the minute that you hear something, all of a sudden it catches your attention, your subconscious all of a sudden rings in, you're like, okay, you have my attention. What's going on? It's a downfall of society that we live technology, cell phone
Oh, yeah.
here, angled neck. We're hunched over like cavemen all the time, rather than standing up and being free and raising our hands up and just be like, let's own this and take over, man. I mean, oh, you're getting me going, Brian. Speak in the affirmative. Okay, so one of the things I have there's Mike said, Baker said we have enough hunters already. This one really made me laugh. Like,
Yeah.
talk about a guy who casts judgment, right? You have enough already. You're satiated. It's okay. Like, no, are you not constantly trying to gain more votes, gain more followers, gain more supporters, no. Either you are getting better or you are getting worse. Either you are green and growing or you are ripe and rotting, right? So we are constantly wanting to gain traction. And here it is, this Baker guy, he's like, I think there's enough hunters already. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, that was Barbara Baker. She was actually reappointed, so she didn't need to go to a Senate committee hearing, but she, you know, played the good political card, and she decided to show up in front of the committee and spoke, and they asked her some questions, and she said, "We don't have enough wild places as it is." I'm paraphrasing. We don't need to be recruiting or retaining anyone. So that happened while that happened while our team was at the North American conference. I don't know what it's called, but our government affairs VP was at the conference, and he was sitting through all these presentations talking about conservation, talking about hunters are powerful because of conservation, talking about R3. Every single state is putting millions into R3. And now you have the chairman or chairperson, whatever, of the Washington Fish and Game Commission telling a Senate committee, we don't need to be recruiting or retaining anyone. We don't have enough wild lands as it is. So basically, go home, sit inside, and shut up.
Mhm. Right.
Watch. Reservationist, watch it. Don't interact with it. Watch it from a distance. Actually, don't even do that. Just stay in your city, stay in your living room, and let those of us who are knowledgeable and well off enough to do this, and the rest of you just stay home.
Hey, only learn what I'm teaching you. don't go outside of, this little spectrum right here, because this is the safe spot. Anything out here is dangerous. Right here is good. One of my first times explaining hunting to somebody, I told them I grew up a backpacker. So I was always, leave no trace, stay on the trail, only walk on an already already maintained trail. Don't go off trail. Hunting is coloring outside the lines. It's like, what's over here? What's over there? There's beauty in it. And it will take you as far as you want to go. It's like reading a book to gain knowledge, to see something from a different perspective, rather than just being like, I have an opinion, but I haven't lived it, right? And so often these people want to tell you how to think. They want to tell you how to act. They want to tell you how to speak. They want to tell you how to live, how to be. And I'm sick of it, personally. I'm exhausted. That's actually, unfortunately, being a public educator in the state of Washington, I had to leave. I had to take my children. I was not going to put my children in public education in Washington. We were homeschooling, and then it was like, I got to get out of here, because there's more to this world than our little box that we live in. Whether it's the I-5 corridor from Everett to Seattle or whatever, it's like there's more out there than what we know. And so let's start thirsting for this knowledge. And this is why I love talking with you, Brian, and I love what Sportsmen's Alliance stands for, because it's not, we've talked a lot about, critter clubs. Love them. You specifically told me, before you even get involved with Sportsmen's Alliance, you got to get involved with the Second Amendment group, right? Because that is the foundation of of us as Americans, the Constitution. Because without Second Amendment, like, really, hunting isn't really going to be as powerful. And then get the Sportsmen's group, and then your critter clubs. And I agree. And I'm ready for people to rise up, because there's power in numbers. Hopefully you're getting just jacked right now. Just you picking up the
I do
energy.
it all day long. I have to, it's a marathon for me, not a sprint.
I get it.
If I sprint the whole time, I'm gonna die.
I get it. Well, I tell you, just like I like to use a lot of biblical references. Just like when Moses was holding up his hands to part the Red Sea, he had to have people hold his arms up, right? There's strength in numbers. There's strength in numbers, and when we collectively as a voice can really make a difference, that's where the power is at. So what are some of the things that we can do? Obviously I want to promote Sportsmen's Alliance and get people to become members, but what are some things that we can actually do right here as we get off this call, we get off this podcast, maybe go sit down at a computer or what?
Yeah, joining's great. I mean, it costs money to hire lobbyists and lawyers. We have to pay a lawyer to do this stuff, because we're not lawyers. We don't have in-house legal counsel. So we're doing that. So becoming a member is great, or a donor. If you don't have that, you can just go to our website and sign up for our email alerts. And so when we put something out in Washington or Texas, like we just did, whether it's a kenneling bill in Texas or the Game Commission stuff in Washington, whatever it is, you'll get that sent right to your email box. And if there's an action to take, there will be a take action button. So back to that kind of one click where it's just nice and easy. Click, pre-written email, go into the committee or the floor or whoever it's going to. That's kind of that entryway into activism right there. Beyond that, getting involved, like we were talking about, actually picking up the phone, writing your original email with an original subject line, with original points, telling your story, what hunting means to you, what a kenneling bill would do to puppy prices, let them understand this, pick up the phone, call, get involved.
I do want to say this, and this blew my mind. So maybe I'm ignorant. Maybe I am blind to a lot of things, and I'll say I don't know it all. I started this journey to gain knowledge, not because I had knowledge to share. In the state of Washington, I couldn't. It was like super hard for me to actually figure out what district I was in, who my representatives are, and how to get a hold of them. Now, I'm not a stupid person. I
Yeah,
like to
no,
consider myself
I agree.
educated and smart. We don't talk about it in schools. I know firsthand we don't talk about that in schools. So here I am, a pro hunter, advocate, educated person working to get a hold of my legislators, and I can't find their numbers. All I got is their email addresses. Um, I don't know where their offices are. I moved to the state of Texas, and in every county there are signs that says representatives in their names, office this direction, and they're visible for people to see. And I'm like, if only that was like that in all states, where you could actually go, hey, here's their office, I'm making it happen. Let's go knock on some doors and let that spoken word be more active. Brian, what are you showing right
Yep.
there?
You can go to our Legislative Action Center, drop down to contact your officials. Your federal officials show up, your senators, representatives, and your state officials show up, from your governor on down to your local representatives. You click it, you'll get their address, you'll get their their district address, as well as their capital address. You get their email and get their phone number right there. And so you can just click it and open it up.
Man,
Open it up.
man, that's beautiful. So
So it's all right there.
I,
Personal. You can read about their kids, their wives, what committees they're on, and who their staff, Scott Staley. So, but there's your contact info, and that's for everybody. So you just go in there and you'll put in your zip code and state, and it will pull everything up for you. If you want to contact them, you can just check them all and compose an email, compose a message.
okay, so
Makes
you
it super simple.
so you go so first off, all you listeners, it's Sportsmen's Alliance, MEN, sportsmensalliance.org. And then you click on the Legislative Action Center, go down to contact your officials, and in there you type in your zip code, and then you type in your address, and it'll pull up all of your representatives. That's huge. I mean,
So
spoon.
yeah, we created this year, updated it. So we have the legislative heat map. You can see what email campaigns for different states we have active. Contact your officials, the latest news, our archive of news, and if you want to sign up for the alerts, you can do right there too.
I,
So
I love it.
or down.
Well, I'll tell you
Try
this.
to make it easy.
Dude, yeah, right. Because the common excuse in everyone's life is, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just so busy. I'm busy. Sorry, I don't got time for that." M- Making it simpler so that people can go through the process and make it happen. One of the things, Brian, I want to just do a shout out to you right here and actually put something on your calendar for this coming December. Is every December we've always done a community building event under the banner of mentorship as conservation, and it's always been a fundraiser. For the last couple of years in the past, it's been toy drives for Seattle Children's Hospital and different stuff like that. This last year, we decided to bring in Robbie Kroger from Blood Origins and do a fundraiser for Blood Origins. This year in December, we want to invite you and Sportsmen's Alliance to come be a part of our December event. And I lost
I,
you
I,
there. Did I lose you?
yeah, you're all
Oh,
broken up.
oh man. Okay. So what I was saying is, this coming December, I want you to put it on your calendar that Sportsmen's Alliance and you are going to be the guests of honor at our community event in December under the banner of Mentorship as Conservation, because we want to fundraise for Sportsmen's Alliance.
Cool, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll be there.
you guys do so
Or-
much,
or- or-
so we'll make sure
yeah,
we take care of you as well.
awesome. Thanks,
Anything?
bud.
You're welcome. Anything you want to share before we get off of this?
Uh, I don't know. Just stay abreast of what's going on. Even if it's not happening in your state, watch it because it will come to your state eventually. If you're in Texas, so it seems like a very safe state. You got, what is it? Texans for mountain lions that's coming in there, and they're probably going to start petitioning, or they've already petitioned the Fish and Game there to end mountain lion hunting. Well, that's an offshoot of Project Coyote, which is how a California group becomes a Texan group and how they move that ideology around. Um, and that's the other thing is everything. While there's still 1,000 bills we're tracking in this legislatures nationwide, they've now shifted down to the commission level. So they're doing more of these petitions to state fish and game commissions, petitioning the federal government. They're using every level of government, so you have to get involved, make your voice heard, brush up on your civics 101 from high school, because that's what a lot of this boils down to. And Yeah, the a lot of the times people will say, "Well, I think that's okay. I think that's fine." Um, a kennel that has 20 females in it is too many. I think 11's fine. Well, what we see is the slippery slope. It goes from 11, and then I was just having this conversation with somebody before I came on. It goes from 11, and then next year they come back and they lower it to 5. And the next year they come back and they lower it to 3 or 1 or 0. So it's the slippery slope. And it's happening not just with the Second Amendment stuff, but it's happening with, your dogs, with everything to do with hunting. It's kind of just a death by little cuts, and moving the ball. Like for a football, and I use biblical analogies, I use football. They don't have to throw a touchdown. They don't have to throw a touchdown every time. All they need are first downs and just keep matriculating the ball down the field.
Yep.
And eventually they'll score and get what they want.
Yeah.
So just stay vigilant and stay active.
It's so interesting. Colorado wants to reintroduce wolves. Well, all of a sudden now Wyoming has an issue, and Utah has an issue, and all the bordering states have issues. And it is the analogy of a moldy, rotten fruit in a dish with a bunch of others. That mold, if there's one bad fruit, it'll spoil the whole bunch. You have to address that one because it quickly spreads. Um, Man, Brian, I'm honored to have you on this podcast. I'm honored to call you a friend and a brother in the fight. Thank you. Anytime that you want to get on a podcast or you want to do an Instagram live like this so that we can share this message, let me know. I'd love to keep this up to date, and it's an open door anytime you want. Brother,
Sounds good.
I really appreciate it. Look forward to connecting with you. Are you turkey hunting this year?
Oh yeah, I'm counting down the days. I'm going out, taking Tucker out, taking one of my buddy's kids who he doesn't hunt, and so this will be his first time hunting. He took hunter ed all by himself over Christmas break and has been skeet and trap shooting, and now he wants to get out and do something. So he texted and was like, "Hey, can you help me?" And so I'll be taking him out, trying to get him a turkey, and yeah, and then I'll be in Wisconsin shooting a turkey too. So hopefully shooting a turkey with the Vortex guys. So yeah, hit Washington hard for a couple 4 weeks, and then hit Wisconsin, and then off to the Idaho Bearwoods.
Awesome. I'm working on heading over to Idaho for spring bear as well, but end of May, beginning of June, we'll might have to link up. All right, guys. Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in this podcast. Thank you so much for being a part of Soul Seekers Nation. Remember that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure, and that mentorship is conservation. If you want hunting to last for generations to come, then you need to invest in the hearts and lives of other people. Don't let hunting end with you. Don't take it to the grave. Give it away. The best thing that you can ever do is something that you love is to give it away. And if it's meant to be, it's going to return. If you guys like this podcast, please share, subscribe, like, do all that, because we need to spread the word. And it is a good word, and it is a mission, and it takes all of us to be working on it and be advocates. Remember that if you want to support the show, feel free to support our sponsors, and don't forget to sign up and become a member of Sportsmen's Alliance. What is it, like $25 for a year or something like that?
35.
35.
35.
Super.
Or you can donate whatever you want.
Yeah, you don't even have to be a member. You can just send money.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, Brian, thank you so much for sharing all your information. Everybody, be blessed. Freedom on. And as always, stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating as it helps us share our mission of mentorship is conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure. If you want to get more connected with the podcast, check out the Soul Seekers Nation Facebook group, as I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. So stay tuned and stay soulful.